All right, welcome in. This is the Individual Skills Hockey Podcast. I'm your host, Miles Deeth, and this is Playing Fast. Again, we have Ben Monahan in the studio today, and our topic on this episode of Playing Fast is the proper amount of games different levels should be playing. So just to start this off, we have a game limit of 35 games. Is that correct, at the squirt age right now in Minnesota hockey?
Yep, that's correct.
And we have no game limits at the older levels. So initial thoughts on that?
This one is can get a little heated for me with Minnesota hockey because I think 35 is fine at squirts. I actually think it's too high in all reality, especially when you hear the coaches out there, using the shared practices or controlled scrimmages. So 35 in all reality gets to 40 or 43 before you know it. And 35 I don't believe counts playoffs. So really you're getting up over 45 for some teams. And now that's your local cities teams. Not every team in the outstate is able to do that due to travel, but I've never understood why they put a limit on squirts, and then after that it's a free-for-all. And when I mean free-for-all, there will be Pee Wee and Bantam teams this year that will play 70 games when the season is done. I'm not sure on hand right now, but the season for most teams started at the beginning of October. Maybe some even October 10th. We're 2 months into the year, and some have already played 24-plus games.
And again, that's the start of the year, right?
Correct.
Like in a 2-month span, I'm thinking like at the end of the year, that's not like crazy. It's too much for sure, but at the start of the year, that's ridiculous.
When you start out the year with the tournament called the Centennial Preview, so that gets you 5 games right out of the gate there, I believe, or 4. And then you do the Blue Ox, or Battle of the Ox, or whatever, up in Moorhead. And that's another 5 games. So before you even gotten into the second weekend of November, there's teams that have already been playing 10 tournament games. And coaches out there, you can't go to a tournament if you haven't played like 5 practice games already, right? I mean, you got to work on the power play and the PK. So there's teams back in that were in the first, second week in November that were already pushing 15 games. And then they just came off of a tournament up in Duluth, which was another 4 to 5 games for teams. So you're already at, for your above average team. I believe I looked today. I believe Moorhead is number 1 in the state. They're 17-2-1, something like that. So that's 20, and they're not on the high end. There's teams that are surpassed them by 5-7 games.
All right, so backing up a little bit, I think where we're coming from, and this is not meant to be a shot at tournaments or tournament organizers, or like that's not our purpose here. I think
No, correct.
We don't want to take shots, but backing up, I feel really strongly about all of the evidence suggests that you need to have a 2-to-1 practice to game ratio for proper development at the bare minimum.
Well, and I think what's funny though is in Minnesota hockey stayed 3-to-1.
I'm sure they do.
Which how is that even possible then? So that the questions I've always had is Minnesota hockey has these great ideas and to have the game limit, and I mean up until now they kind of either USA or Minnesota hockey caved a little bit on the mites, right? Now we're back up to 10 full ice games. I think it was down as little as 2. And in squirts you have the hard stop at 35, but after that you can do as many as you want. And what people don't understand is for your Bantam team this year that plays 60 to 70 games, those same kids that are on that Bantam AA team just came off of a Tier 1 schedule that played 20 to 25. So that means from August 1st to actually probably middle of August to the first weekend of March or March 1st, they will have played 80 to 90 hockey games.
Right. And I have a question. Do you think that most people realize that the ideal is the 2-to-1 practice to game ratio, and they understand that what we're doing now isn't ideal? but they're just trying to keep up. They have FOMO and they're trying to keep up with the Joneses of, well, why is this program better than ours? Because they're playing more games, so we have to play more games. Do you think people understand what the ideal is, or do they not understand that actually practices develop players at a much more efficient and higher rate than playing games?
I think they don't understand it. I think it's the FOMO. It's the living where we live in the cities, that you have so many games at your discrepancy whenever you want them. It's this team beat that team, so let's get them on the schedule. I think kids are bored with practices, so the coaches think let's get practices off the schedule. It also takes less work for coaches to run practices than it does to go sit on the bench and coach a game. So I think there's a lot of
more work at practices. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things that go into it. Again, Moorhead is number 1 in the state. They've played less games than almost most of the city's teams has. Teams up in East Grand Forks, Warroad, other places up north, they don't play that many games at all, and I think their hockey's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Roseau, same thing. Like, games doesn't equal talent or success, and I think we've lost sight of that. But I don't know who's to blame for it. I mean, I think the debate is there, but who's at fault for it? I mean, if there's a free-for-all, people will just go schedule whatever they want.
Well, I would say it's a lack of leadership. If we know, like, the research is overwhelming that we know what to do is right. We know what to do if we want to develop hockey players. The lack of leadership comes in on not having limits, number one. Poor communication from, honestly, people like me at Wayzata. Not explaining well enough what the damage this does to kids as they move up.
When I was at St. Michael as a hockey director, we did implement a game count, and it was more of a game recommendation, but we did say Pee Wee's 45, Bantam's 50. But at the same time, it's hard. You're in a – I mean, I remember my son was a Pee Wee AA in a district schedule with District 10, and I think you played 24 district games. So before you even got to play a tournament, you were already playing 24. That doesn't count anything else, a scrimmage you may have put on the schedule or whatever. So I think the amount of practices is definitely not there. I mean, there'd be weeks you'd play 4 games and get 1 or 2 practices, 5 games. And then the thing is, you come off of a weekend of where you just played 4 or 5, the kids probably need a day off the next day. And then you maybe get a practice in there, and then you're at a weekend game again.
Well, we see it all the time right now. Like, when a team has a tournament coming up, usually at Wayzata, their schedule will be like Monday night skills. They might have dryland on Wednesday, but they won't skate on Tuesday and Thursday. And it's because of a lack of ice.
Yep.
But if they did skate on Tuesday and Thursday leading up to a 5-game tournament, you would need the next week to be like 2 events in order for things to balance out for the whole year. So it's, I don't know who's to blame. I still think it's a lack of leadership. Now,
so what do you think the right number is at each level? So Squirts, do you think 35 is the right number, or do you think it should be even less?
I think all of, like, whatever number you pick, we need to be hitting 2-to-1 practice games. So, like, if you can show me that a Bantam team is going to practice 100 times, I really don't have an issue with them playing 50 games. The reality of ice availability is we're not hitting 100 practices.
No.
I checked, and our Bantam team right now is scheduled for 76 ice touches. Not all of those will occur based on trading, like shared ice and solo ice with the Bantam A team. So that number is going to be more like 60. And so we're never going to be able to achieve, like, I don't think they should be playing 30 games at Bantams. But, I think 35 at Squirts is fine. I would prefer 30. I think 40 at Pee Wee's, and I think 50 at Bantams.
Yeah.
I don't understand the issue with that. You still have plenty of fun opportunities. You still have plenty of game experience. And what I'd like to say is, like, look at the high school model right now. we get 2-to-1 practice a game. So we play Thursday, Saturday in a week. We practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Correct.
It's 4-to-2. And because of the number of kids we have and the amount of practice we have, we see, like, from my experience at Wayzata in the 5 years, kids get better in such a short amount of time. I mean, you think about the high school season being as short as it is. If it was as long as the youth season, I mean, there's no telling the development that would occur.
Yeah. I mean, I've jokingly said I think there's Bantams out there that play almost 120 games in a calendar year. When you think about everything that they do, whether it's during the season, whether it's during the fall, whether it's in the spring, whether it's showcases they went to or AAA stuff they're still doing, they are surpassing 120 games in a calendar year.
And I think the last thing I'll say, and we're getting close to time here, we need to start thinking about the kids first. And I think a lot of this going to tournaments, making sure that there's 5 games in a tournament, a lot of it is done for the parents. And those are the people that are making the decisions, because going to games with your friend group as parents is fun.
I would agree. And actually, Miles, let's put this question out to the viewership. Let's see what people think of a little bit of a hot topic of, you have Minnesota hockey puts 35 games down as a hard count for squirts. So Minnesota hockey, why do you not have a hard count for peewees and bantams? If you truly believe in development and believe in the practice to game ratio, why is there not a hard count at peewees and bantams? I'd be curious to hear everybody's thoughts to that.
Yeah, let us know. HockeyOps@WayzataHockey.org, or you can find us on social, iSkills Hockey Podcast, or individual. It's a different username for every platform. But again, that was Playing Fast on the topic of game counts in youth hockey.